What would you do if the woman you cared for every day was lying to you? What if the man stealing your future had your face? And what if your own family helped make it happen? Stay with me because this story from Betrayal Revenge Stories begins with one phone call and ends with a truth so shocking it destroyed an entire family. People always say betrayal comes from the people closest to you. For most of my life, I thought that was just something people said when they were angry. I was wrong. Terribly wrong. My name is Nathan Reed. I was 62 years old. For more than 30 years, I worked as a bridge inspector. I spent my life finding tiny cracks before they became disasters. I knew how to spot weakness in steel. I knew how to spot danger in concrete. But somehow, I never saw the cracks growing inside my own family. For 7 years, I took care of my wife, Melissa Reed. Every morning started the same way. Medicine, doctor calls, hospital schedules, special meals, more medicine, then more appointments. I stopped living my own life. Everything became about her illness. She told me her kidneys were failing. She told me she was getting weaker. She told me she needed me. And I believed every word. That evening I stood in my kitchen preparing dinner. The smell of honey chicken filled the room. The sun shined through the window. Everything felt normal, safe, predictable. Then my phone started vibrating. I looked down. The caller ID showed the bank handling my late father's inheritance. My heart jumped. Maybe the paperwork was finally finished. I answered. Hello. The young man's voice sounded nervous. Very nervous. Mr. Reed? Yes. It's Aaron from Silverstone Trust. Something about his tone made my stomach tighten. What's wrong? He lowered his voice. I shouldn't be calling you. I straightened immediately. What happened? The silence lasted only a second, but it felt much longer. Then he whispered. Sir, your wife is here. I blinked. What? She's sitting in one of our private offices. I frowned. That's impossible. Aaron swallowed hard. I'm looking right at her. A cold feeling crawled through my chest. No. She's at the hospital. She's here. My grip tightened on the phone. Then Aaron said the words that changed everything. Sir, she's with a man who looks exactly like you. The room froze. Every sound disappeared. What did you say? He looks exactly like you. I laughed nervously. This isn't funny. I'm not joking. His voice trembled. He's wearing your suit. The knife slipped from my fingers. It hit the floor with a loud clang. That's impossible. He has your glasses. My breathing became uneven. He has your watch. My heart pounded. I'm standing in my kitchen. Aaron sounded terrified. Then who is signing those papers? The blood drained from my face. What papers? The inheritance papers. For a moment I couldn't move. I couldn't think. Then Aaron whispered something that nearly stopped my heart. He's signing your name. I ran. I didn't turn off the stove. I didn't lock the door. I just ran. 12 minutes. That was all I had. 12 minutes before someone stole everything my father spent his life building. As my truck raced down the road, memories flooded my mind. 7 years. 7 years of sacrifice. 7 years of worry. 7 years of taking care of Melissa. I remembered the day I quit my career. I loved my work, but Melissa cried. She said she couldn't survive without me. She begged me to stay home. So I walked away from everything. I chose her. Now I was speeding toward a bank while wondering if my entire life had been a lie. When I finally pulled into the parking lot, my stomach dropped. Melissa's SUV sat outside. Not at a hospital. At the bank. Exactly where Aaron said it would be. I walked closer. Then I noticed something strange. A professional makeup case sat inside the vehicle. Not ordinary makeup. Special effects makeup. The kind used in movies. My chest tightened. Someone hadn't found my twin. Someone had created him. Aaron met me at a side entrance. His face looked pale. Come quickly. He led me through hallways and security doors until we reached a monitoring room. Several security screens covered one wall. Aaron pointed. There. I looked, and my world shattered. Melissa sat at a conference table. She looked healthy. Perfectly healthy. No weakness. No pain. No exhaustion. She was smiling. Laughing. Enjoying herself. For 7 years she claimed she barely had strength to walk. Now she looked better than she had in years. Then I looked at the man sitting beside her. My knees nearly gave out. He looked exactly like me. My face. My hair. My glasses. My suit. Even my wedding ring. It felt like staring into a mirror. Melissa reached over and touched his hand. A loving touch. A warm touch. A touch she hadn't given me in years. The two of them laughed together. Like a couple. Like partners. Like people sharing a secret. I stared at the screen. The pain was unbearable. 7 years. 7 years of love. 7 years of sacrifice. 7 years of loyalty. And this was the truth. Slowly, my heartbreak turned into something else. Something colder. Something stronger. Anger. I pulled out my phone. There was only one person I trusted. Attorney Garrett Hayes. He answered immediately. Nathan. They're stealing my inheritance. His voice became serious. Tell me everything. I explained what I was seeing. Garrett listened quietly. Then he said something important. Do not confront them yet. They're signing documents. Listen carefully. I forced myself to stay calm. Garrett reminded me about a special protection my father placed inside the inheritance trust. Any transfer over a certain amount required my engineering seal. A unique certification only I possessed. The fake version of me couldn't provide it. For the first time all day I felt a tiny bit of hope. Then Garrett discovered something worse. Much worse. Financial records. Thousands of dollars disappearing every month. Again. And again. And again. The money was going to a company owned by Melissa's sister, Rachel Morgan. I stared at the numbers. What am I looking at? Garrett sighed. I think they've been stealing from you for years. The room felt smaller. Harder to breathe in. Every expensive treatment. Every hospital bill. Every emergency appointment. The dates matched the missing money. While I sat beside hospital beds praying for Melissa, someone was draining my accounts. Then another discovery appeared. A luxury waterfront apartment. Paid for using my money. The second name on the lease made my stomach twist. My daughter. Chloe Reed. I shook my head. No. But the evidence didn't care what I believed. The apartment lease began the same month I left my career. The same month I became Melissa's full-time caregiver. While I sacrificed everything, they were building a secret life. A happy life. A life funded by me. Then another payment appeared. Thousands spent on professional makeup artists. Suddenly the fake man on the screen made sense. I had unknowingly paid for my own replacement. My money built him. My trust created him. The betrayal felt impossible. Then came the final shock. The fake me had a name. Jason Black. A struggling actor. A man drowning in gambling debt. Garrett pulled up photographs. Before. And after. The transformation was incredible. Professional makeup artists had studied my face. My mannerisms. My appearance. They turned Jason into me. Then another photograph appeared. My heart nearly stopped. Chloe stood beside Jason. Smiling. Holding his arm. Not strangers. Not partners. A couple. I couldn't believe it. My daughter helped create the man replacing me. Tears filled my eyes. But I refused to let them fall. Not now. Not while they were still winning. I looked back at the security monitor. Melissa laughed again. For the first time I stopped seeing my wife. I saw a stranger. Maybe the woman I loved never existed. Maybe she disappeared years ago. Or maybe I had simply refused to see the truth. I stood up slowly. Aaron looked nervous. Sir? I took a deep breath. The pain remained. But something else was growing. Determination. They thought they had already won. They thought I was weak. They thought I would never learn the truth. They were wrong. Because this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. And before I was finished, every secret would come into the light. Every lie would be exposed. And every person who helped destroy my life would face the consequences. But what I discovered over the next few days was even worse than the fake husband, the stolen inheritance, or the secret apartment. Because hidden inside my own home was a plan. A plan that had been carefully built for 7 long years. A plan with a terrifying name. Operation Legacy. The words, Operation Legacy, stayed in my mind all night. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Melissa laughing beside the fake version of me. I saw Chloe smiling with Jason. I saw 7 years of my life disappearing like smoke. By sunrise, I was sitting in my home office with attorney Garrett Hayes. The old laptop sat between us. Neither of us spoke for a moment. The folder remained open on the screen. Hundreds of files. Hundreds of secrets. Years of lies. Garrett finally broke the silence. Ready? I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. The first document opened. My stomach immediately tightened. It was a timeline. A detailed timeline. Every important event from the last 7 years. My retirement. Melissa's first hospital visit. The sale of investments. Changes to insurance policies. Large bank transfers. Everything had been carefully tracked. Like a military operation. Like a business project. Like my entire life was a target. Garrett continued reading. Then he suddenly stopped. Nathan. I looked up. His face had turned pale. What is it? He slowly rotated the screen toward me. A document sat in the center. His title made my blood run cold. Phase 1. Isolation. Underneath were detailed instructions. How to separate me from friends. How to reduce contact with relatives. How to make me depend completely on Melissa. How to convince me to leave my career. Every step had notes beside it. Every successful manipulation was marked complete. I stared at the screen. I couldn't breathe. They planned it. Every piece. Every sacrifice I thought I made out of love had been carefully designed. Garrett opened another file. Phase 2. Financial control. My chest tightened. The document explained how they would slowly gain access to my finances. How medical expenses would justify missing money. How emotional pressure would stop me from asking questions. How fake emergencies would distract me whenever suspicious transactions appeared. I remembered those emergencies. The sudden hospital visits. The late-night panic attacks. The frightening phone calls. All fake. Every one of them. The realization hit harder than anything before. For 7 years, I wasn't helping my wife survive. I was helping criminals steal from me. Garrett kept reading. Then we found the medical records. The fake medical records. Thousands of pages. False reports. False diagnoses. False treatment schedules. Everything looked real. Professional. Convincing. Someone had spent years building this lie. I rubbed my face. This can't be real. Garrett looked at me sadly. I'm afraid it is. Then we found videos. Dozens of them. Training sessions. Planning meetings. Recorded conversations. The first video showed Melissa. Healthy. Strong. Confident. Nothing like the sick woman she pretended to be. Jason sat across from her. Practicing my signature. Again. And again. And again. Melissa corrected every detail. No, Nathan pauses longer. No, Nathan tilts his head this way. No, Nathan signs slower. She knew everything about me. Everything. My habits. My expressions. My movements. My weaknesses. The woman I trusted most had spent years teaching another man how to replace me. The video ended. I felt sick. Garrett opened another file. Then another. Each one worse than the last. Until finally we found the master plan. The final objective. The inheritance. Everything led back to my father's trust. Everything. The fake illness. The missing money. The fake husband. The isolation. All of it. One giant plan. One final goal. Steal everything. I sat quietly for a long time. Then I stood up. Something inside me had changed. The heartbreak remained. The pain remained. But the confusion was gone. Now I knew exactly what I was fighting. And I wasn't going to lose. Over the next several days, Garrett assembled a team. Financial investigators. Forensic accountants. Fraud specialists. Private investigators. The deeper they looked, the uglier the truth became. Money had disappeared through dozens of companies. Shell corporations. Fake consulting firms. Hidden accounts. Luxury purchases. Vacation properties. Vehicles. Jewelry. Everything paid for using my money. Investigators estimated the total theft was several $1,000,000. Millions. The number felt unreal. Meanwhile, Melissa and Chloe continued acting normally. They had no idea I knew everything. That became our biggest advantage. Garrett wanted evidence. Not accusations. Evidence. And evidence was exactly what we collected. Every day. Every hour. Every minute. The mountain of proof kept growing. Then something unexpected happened. A phone call changed everything. The caller ID showed a New York number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. Hello. Silence. Then a familiar voice. Dad. My heart nearly stopped. Brandon? My son. The son I hadn't spoken to in almost 10 years. For years I believed he hated me. That he wanted nothing to do with me. That's what Chloe always told me. Apparently Chloe told Brandon the same thing. That I didn't care. That I abandoned him. That I never wanted contact. We had both been manipulated. For nearly an hour we talked. We laughed. We cried. We remembered. Then Brandon told me something important. He knew about Operation Legacy. Not everything. But enough. He had emails. Messages. Old conversations. Evidence. And he was coming home. For the first time in years I felt hope. Real hope. A few days later, Brandon arrived. The moment I saw him, emotions hit me like a wave. 10 years. 10 stolen years. We hugged. Neither of us wanted to let go. Neither of us knew how much time we had lost until that moment. Then we got to work. Brandon handed Garrett everything. Emails. Text messages. Screenshots. Voice recordings. The evidence filled multiple boxes. And every piece pointed toward the same people. Melissa. Chloe. Jason. The walls were closing in. Then investigators uncovered something terrifying. Life insurance policies. Huge policies. Policies worth millions. Policies created in my name. I wasn't surprised at first. Then I saw the beneficiary. Jason Black. Not Melissa. Not Chloe. Jason. The room went silent. Nobody needed to explain what that meant. The implication was obvious. The inheritance wasn't enough. The stolen money wasn't enough. They wanted more. Much more. The discovery immediately brought federal investigators into the case. Everything changed. Now it wasn't just fraud. It wasn't just identity theft. The case became far more serious. Much more dangerous. And suddenly Operation Legacy began collapsing faster than anyone expected. The final confrontation arrived 2 weeks later. The bank scheduled another meeting. Melissa believed the inheritance transfer was finally ready. She had no idea what was waiting. Neither did Chloe. Neither did Jason. The three of them arrived early. Confident. Relaxed. Smiling. They believed they had won. The conference room looked exactly like before. Documents waited on the table. The notary prepared paperwork. Everything appeared normal. Then the door opened. I walked inside. The smiles disappeared instantly. Jason froze. Melissa turned white. Chloe stared at me silently. I sat down across from them. Nobody spoke. The silence felt endless. Finally Melissa forced a smile. Nathan. I raised my hand. Don't. The room became even quieter. Then Garrett entered. Behind him came investigators. Bank officials. Law enforcement officers. The atmosphere changed immediately. Fear appeared on Melissa's face. Real fear. Garrett placed several thick folders onto the table. One for each person. Then he spoke calmly. We know everything. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Garrett opened the first folder. Bank transfers. The second folder. Fake medical records. The third folder. Operation Legacy. The fourth folder. Insurance policies. The fifth folder. Video evidence. One by one, every lie collapsed. Jason started sweating. Melissa looked ready to faint. But Chloe remained calm. Almost cold. She looked directly at me. Then she said something I will never forget. You were always easy to control. The words hit harder than anything else. Harder than the stolen money. Harder than the fake illness. Harder than the betrayal. Because she meant it. My own daughter. The little girl I taught to ride a bicycle. The little girl who used to run into my arms after school. She looked at me like I was nothing. Like I was a tool. A source of money. A problem. The pain nearly broke me. But I stayed calm. Because the truth was finally stronger than their lies. Federal agents entered moments later. The arrests happened quickly. Jason broke first. Immediately. The moment handcuffs appeared, he started talking. Everything. Every detail. Every meeting. Every plan. Every crime. Melissa began crying. Begging. Pleading. Chloe said nothing. Not a single word. She simply watched everything fall apart. Weeks later the trial began. News stations covered the story constantly. Reporters packed the courthouse. People couldn't believe what happened. A fake husband. A fake illness. Millions stolen. A family destroyed by greed. The evidence was overwhelming. Videos. Financial records. Witness testimony. Medical fraud reports. Electronic communications. The jury listened carefully. Day after day. Then Brandon testified. His voice shook. But he told the truth. How Chloe manipulated him. How she separated us. How she controlled information. How she kept us apart. Then he looked directly at me. Tears filled his eyes. Dad. I'm sorry. I couldn't stop my own tears anymore. For years I dreamed about hearing those words. Now they were finally real. And in that moment I realized something important. The greatest thing I recovered wasn't money. It was family. Real family. The trial lasted months. Then came sentencing. Jason received years in federal prison. The judge showed no mercy. Melissa received a lengthy sentence for fraud and conspiracy. By then her health had actually started failing. Ironically, after years of pretending to be sick, she finally became ill. But nobody believed her anymore. Then came Chloe. The mastermind. The planner. The architect behind Operation Legacy. The courtroom became completely silent. The judge reviewed every crime. Every manipulation. Every betrayal. Then he announced the sentence. Years behind bars. A very long time. For the first time, Chloe looked shocked. For the first time, she looked afraid. The empire she built through lies had collapsed. Completely. As officers escorted her away, she looked back once. Our eyes met. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. She didn't. Then she disappeared through the courtroom doors. And that was the last time I saw her. Months passed. Life slowly changed. The stolen assets were recovered. Properties were sold. Accounts were frozen. Money returned. Most of it anyway. But money wasn't what mattered anymore. The real victory was freedom. No more lies. No more manipulation. No more fear. Most importantly, Brandon remained in my life. We rebuilt our relationship one day at a time. One conversation at a time. One memory at a time. Slowly, the missing years stopped hurting quite so much. One spring morning, nearly a year later, I sat on my porch watching the sunrise. The air felt cool. Fresh. Peaceful. Brandon joined me. For a while, neither of us spoke. We simply watched the sunlight spread across the horizon. Finally, he smiled. You okay, Dad? I looked at the sunrise. Then I looked at my son. The son I thought I had lost forever. And for the first time in many years, I smiled without pain. Without fear. Without regret. Yeah, I said softly. I really am. The people who betrayed me stole years of my life. They stole trust. They stole memories. They stole family. But they failed to steal the most important thing. My spirit. Because lies can survive for years. Sometimes even decades. But the truth is patient. The truth waits. And sooner or later, every mask falls. Every secret comes into the light. And every betrayal finally meets its consequence. Even after the court case ended, I still woke up some nights feeling like I was trapped inside a bad dream. I would walk through the quiet house and remember how many years I spent caring for Melissa. The medicine boxes were gone. The hospital schedules were gone. The fake oxygen machine was gone. But the memories were still there. For a long time, I kept asking myself the same question. How could I miss so many signs? Then one evening, Brandon sat across from me at the kitchen table and said something that changed everything. Dad, good people don't expect the people they love to be running a scam. I stared at him for a moment. He was right. I wasn't stupid. I was trusting. And trust is exactly what they used against me. That realization lifted a weight I had carried for months. Slowly, life began moving forward. Brandon and I started having breakfast together every Sunday. We talked about old memories. We looked through family photos. We laughed about things we had both forgotten. One afternoon, he brought over his young daughter, Emma. My granddaughter. I hadn't seen her since she was a baby. She ran through my house like she had always belonged there. Her laughter filled rooms that had felt empty for years. For the first time in a very long time, the house felt alive again. Emma pointed at an old framed photo of me wearing a hard hat on a bridge project. Grandpa, did you build bridges? I smiled. I helped make sure they stayed strong. She thought about that very seriously. Then you're good at fixing things. Those simple words hit me harder than any courtroom speech. Maybe that was true. Maybe I couldn't fix the years that were stolen. Maybe I couldn't fix the family that chose greed over love. But I could still build something new. I could still be a father. A grandfather. A man who kept moving forward. A few weeks later, I returned to the old bridge where I had worked many years ago. I stood there watching cars pass over the steel structure. The bridge was still standing. Strong. Steady. Reliable. Just like it was designed to be. And I realized something. My life had cracked under the weight of betrayal. But cracks don't always mean something is destroyed. Sometimes they show you exactly where repairs are needed. I looked out at the river and took a long, deep breath. The anger was fading. The bitterness was fading. What remained was something quieter. Peace. Real peace. Because in the end, the people who betrayed me lost everything they built on lies. And I gained something they never truly had. A second chance. At family. At truth. At life. And as the sun set behind the bridge, I finally understood something my father once told me. A strong structure isn't the one that never faces storms. It's the one that's still standing after the storm passes. For the first time in years, I knew I was still standing.